Rockefeller did not conquer oil by shouting the loudest in the marketplace. He conquered it by quietly taking hold of the roads, rails, barrels, refineries, contracts, and prices that every rival needed before they even knew they were trapped. In the years after the American Civil War, oil was not yet the smooth, corporate empire we imagine today. It was chaos in a barrel. In Pennsylvania, derricks rose from muddy fields almost overnight. Men drilled, gambled, shouted, borrowed, and prayed over black crude as if the earth itself had become a casino. Prices rose, crashed, and rose again. A man could become rich by Thursday and ruined by Monday. The industry had energy, but almost no order. I am Walt, and this is the story of how John D. Rockefeller looked at that chaos and saw something most men missed. He understood that oil was not only a product, it was a chain. Whoever controlled the chain could control the men fighting over the product. At first, Rockefeller was not the obvious king of anything. He was a careful Cleveland businessman, not a wild driller in the oil fields. He did not rush to own every well. That is important. Many people chasing oil wanted the crude itself. Rockefeller wanted the system that turned crude into money. Refineries, storage, barrels, shipping rates, reliable supply, predictable costs, the boring machinery behind the fortune. Cleveland gave him a strange advantage. It was not the center of the oil fields, but it was connected by rail and water. Crude could come in. Refined kerosene could go out. While others obsessed over the drama of discovery, Rockefeller studied waste. He hated waste. He hated unstable prices. He hated duplicated effort, weak operators, and reckless competitors who sold below cost until everyone bled. In 1870, Standard Oil was formed. The name sounded ordinary, almost dull. That was part of the genius. In a market full of inconsistency, the promise of standard quality mattered. Kerosene was used to light homes, and bad kerosene could smoke, stink, or even explode. Standard Oil offered reliability. But reliability was only the surface. Beneath it was a tightening web of control. The first weapon was efficiency. Rockefeller squeezed value from everything. Waste products became saleable byproducts. Barrels were made cheaper. Refineries were run with discipline. Costs fell. Margins improved. Rivals saw a company selling aggressively and assumed it was simply stronger. They did not yet see that Standard Oil was becoming cheaper to operate at nearly every point in the chain. Then came the rails. In the 19th century, railroads were the arteries of American commerce. If you wanted to move oil at scale, you needed them. Railroads needed volume, and Rockefeller could offer it. Standard Oil shipped so much refined product that it could negotiate rebates, secret discounts that lowered its transport costs. In some arrangements, it also benefited from drawbacks, payments connected to oil shipped by competitors. The details were often hidden, disputed, and bitterly attacked, but the effect was clear. Standard Oil could move oil cheaper than many rivals could survive. Imagine two refiners selling into the same market. One pays the public freight rate. The other pays less, quietly, every day, on every barrel. The second refiner can cut prices, endure downturns, and still breathe. The first begins to suffocate without knowing exactly where the air went. This was not just pricing. It was logistics as a weapon. The South Improvement Company episode made the danger visible. The plan involved special railroad arrangements that would have favored a small group of refiners, including Standard Oil, with rebates and information advantages. When independent oil producers discovered what was happening, outrage exploded. The scheme collapsed under pressure, but even a failed scheme can reveal a mind at work. Rockefeller had seen that transport was not a side cost, it was the battlefield. After that, Standard Oil moved faster. Rivals were approached with a choice that often did not feel like a choice. Sell to Standard, join the combination, or face a competitor with lower costs, better transport terms, stronger financing, and a terrifying willingness to cut prices. Some accepted shares, some resisted, some were crushed. In Cleveland, the takeover of competing refineries became so rapid that the period later gained a brutal nickname, the Cleveland Massacre. That phrase sounds melodramatic until you understand what it meant. Rockefeller was not storming buildings. He was doing something colder. He was making independence economically irrational. A rival could keep his pride, but pride did not pay freight bills. Pride did not stop a price war. Pride did not secure barrel supply, rail access, or credit when Standard Oil was tightening its grip around all of them. The mechanics were relentless. Standard Oil bought refineries, controlled pipeline interests, negotiated rail terms, developed marketing networks, and expanded into distribution. It did not merely compete at the refinery gate, it moved upstream and downstream. It wanted to touch the crude, the transport, the processing, the sale, and eventually the customer relationship. Each link protected the next. That is vertical integration before the phrase became boardroom language. If rivals fought over refining, Rockefeller controlled the inputs and the exits. If they found crude, he had transport advantages. If they refined, he could pressure price. If they reached for markets, Standard's distribution machine was already there. They were playing one board. He was quietly building the room around it. By the 1880s, Standard Oil's influence was enormous. Its trust structure became a model of corporate power and a symbol of corporate fear. The Standard Oil Trust allowed control over a web of companies under a centralized arrangement, giving Rockefeller and his associates a way to manage scale beyond the limits of ordinary company forms. To admirers, it was efficiency. To critics, it was monopoly dressed in paperwork. Both views carried some truth. Standard Oil did lower costs. It did bring order to a violent and unstable industry. It did produce consistent products at scale, but it also used secrecy, pressure, and structural advantage in ways that made fair competition almost impossible. That is why the story feels so modern. The most dangerous monopoly is rarely the one that simply raises its hand and declares itself. It is the one that makes every other route more expensive, slower, weaker, or dependent. By the time public anger and legal scrutiny caught up, Standard Oil had already changed the shape of American business. The company was eventually broken up under antitrust action in 1911, but the breakup did not erase what had been built. It scattered the empire into pieces that remained powerful in their own right. The machine had been judged too dominant, yet the logic survived. Look past the oil and you see the architecture. Rockefeller did not win because he loved petroleum more than everyone else. He won because he understood the path petroleum had to travel. From muddy well to lamp flame, oil had to move through bottlenecks, refining capacity, railroad rates, barrels, storage tanks, pipelines, wholesale networks, retail channels. At each point, Standard Oil found a way to reduce its own friction and increase everyone else's. That is why rivals often looked surprised. They thought they were losing a price war. In truth, they were losing a systems war. They lowered prices and bled. Standard lowered prices and survived. They fought for market share. Standard fought for the structure beneath market share. The strategic post-mortem is not sentimental. Vertical integration wins when your rival is still fighting one piece of the chain. A business that controls only the visible product may look alive, even proud, while the oxygen around it is being quietly purchased by someone else. Rockefeller's genius was not only ambition, it was sequence. First make the operation efficient, then control transport, then absorb competitors, then own distribution, then turn scale into inevitability. This is why Standard Oil remains one of the most important business stories ever told. It is not just about oil. It is about the hidden violence of infrastructure, the rail line that seems neutral, the contract that looks routine, the discount no one sees, the storage tank, the barrel, the shipping rate, the route to the customer. These are not background details. In the right hands, they become the weapon. Thank you for watching. If this story gave you a sharper view of monopoly, logistics, and corporate power, like the video and subscribe to Ink Gold for more high-stakes business and financial documentaries. I appreciate you being here, and I will see you in the next video. Before you go, which modern company do you think controls the chain so well that rivals are fighting only one piece of the game?